Hello and welcome. Today I am joined by Doug Jones, who's a physiotherapist, which I'm sure a lot of people will know and be aware of. So Doug, thank you for joining today.
No problem. Hi Andy, thanks very much for the invite.
No problem. Whereabouts are you today?
I'm in our North Manchester clinic in Bury today, which I work there until about 3 o'clock, and then I go from here into town and I do an evening clinic there.
Right. Yeah. No, I know that you're always really hectic with that now, so it's good to see that you've got so many things going on.
Yeah, we're busy spinning plates. I try and I'm pretty much still 80% clinical, and because I'm not really good at anything other than treating. Some people, don't believe I'm very good at treating, but yeah, 80% of the time I'm treating, and then we employ practice managers and management accountants to do all the clever stuff.
Yeah, we should have had Natalie on actually, shouldn't we?
Yeah, she's dying to get on. She's waiting in the background, ready to pounce. But yeah.
So again, I've known you for a number of years, and I've always been really intrigued as to your history as well. So could we go back to the beginning and just talk about like where you're from originally and how you started to even have ideas of being involved in this area?
Yeah. I was originally from. I was born in Bristol and lived in South Wales, and always sort of had a background in sport really, and moved up to London in '96 and went to university there and studied sports therapy, and at the same time, built quite a good relationship with London Scottish, and I played there, and I was gradually, because I was so rubbish at rugby and always injured, I spent most of the time in the treatment room, making friends with a fantastic chartered physio at the time called Chris Newman. And I was really lucky, he sort of took me under his wing. And I graduated in sports therapy and was kind of the massage kind of strap man at the rugby club. And it was a really good grounding, because we were just fighting fires and getting players out on the pitch, and it was really, a very enjoyable time. And I was still sort of playing for the local university I went to, and that's how it all started, really.
So in terms of you doing sports therapy then, was that at the early days of that?
Yeah, we were the first guys through the degree. Graham was our lecturer, and he was really an inspirational guy. He was a chartered physio that wrote the sports therapy degree, and was, I think, the manager at Lillyshaw at the time. And so we were really, really lucky to have him full time at North London University. And he cracked the whip, me as a sort of belligerent 17-year-old. He was a fantastic person to learn from. So I was really very lucky there. So yeah, I graduated as a first ever sports therapist with a degree, and at that time you could get insurance and practice, and that's how it started.
So in terms of that then, so how did you become aware of that degree?
God, that's a really good question. I think I went to university because of London Scottish. I went there, went for a trial, and they had a relationship with the university, and I started on biological sciences. Most of my mates in the Forest of Dean, where I grew up, they joined the military, and I was just unsure of what to do really. So my mum basically booked me on a course at the university that was near the rugby club, and I went, and I turned up as a West Country boy, wet behind the ears on my BMX, riding around London. And after about 3 months, rang up my mum. They didn't have mobile phones at that time, mid-90s, and said, "Yeah, I think I'm on the wrong course, but I love playing rugby." And I just got friendly with the guy who we were playing rugby with, and he was on the sports therapy degree. And so I met with Graham and said, "Do you mind if I come on this course?" He just let me on there and then. So it was all just sort of fate, really, I guess.
And so how many people were on the course at that point?
It's quite a small degree, maybe 8 or 9 people, I think. And then gradually, as over the 3 years, more and more people joined on it. And it was, at that time, it was very, very, exercise-based, manual handling. And it was just Graham's, he wrote the course himself, just his experience that he'd learned over, quite a distinguished career in football.
Yeah, that's really interesting then. So, how many other tutors were on there?
From memory, not many. It was Graham. There was Steve Smelt, who he was a physio who worked in football full time. And there wasn't many more. And then we had other modules from different parts of the university. There was like a one that prepared us to do research and things. And I wasn't particularly academic, I have to say, but physio sort of sparked my interest, really. Yeah, it was good.
So in terms of that then, I was having this chat with Lee Harrington actually, and he was talking about sort of the academic side versus the practical application. But with this being the first cohort of students there, then how it's always seemed that it's a very practical course, but I presume there was quite a lot of scientific teaching as well.
Yeah, no, there was. Don't get me wrong. There was a lot of theory and content, but I see a lot of physios coming through the course and a lot of sports therapists coming through as well. We take them both on here as students, and I have to say, the sports therapists tend to have the better manual skills and they have better knowledge of exercise prescription. And I can talk like that because I've done the physio degree and I've done the sports therapy degree. And my wife did biology, and I met her on the physio degree. And I know that she felt at the end of the physio degree that she had no like practical skills and no knowledge of exercise prescription. Whereas I felt that the sports therapy degree had prepared me better for that, really.
Yeah, so that's quite interesting then. So when you were doing what made you want to go on to do physio? Was that something that you did directly after sports therapy?
No, I had a couple of years working as a sports therapist, and I was working for Bristol Rugby Club. I'd moved on from London Scottish. I'd done a year for Bristol Rugby Club. There was a physio there who I was working with there, who was also really good. And I was lecturing in a college, but I really wanted to work in the Premiership full time, and I wanted to set up my own practice eventually. And all the advice from all the other people who was mentoring me at the time was, you really do need to go back and do the degree. So that's what we did. So I phoned my dad and said, any chance? So he came out of retirement, went back to work and helped me fund, as London Scottish did as well, actually, helped me fund the physio degree. And that's how I met my wife, and the rest is history.
Well, it's obviously a good decision then for a number of reasons.
she wouldn't agree with you, but I would.
So then for going back to university then, so who were the mentors that you mentioned that advised you to go and do physio?
Well, I had a guy who I used to teach with at FE College in Weston-super-Mare, Steve Teal, and he was all knowledgeable about everything, and he was a fantastic teacher. Real, used to love education. Used to be really passionate about developing people, and it wasn't that I wasn't happy, and I'm pretty happy in any situation, and if it hadn't been for him, I'd probably still be lecturing at Weston-super-Mare College. But I remember him saying to me, look, you've got to follow your dreams. And if you want to work for England Rugby and you want to have your own practice and it seems to me that, you've got to get this degree out of the way, and it's only 3 years of your life. And when you're 25, you think, God, I'm running out of time, I need to. But he sort of settled me down, and I moved back to London again. And started the physio degree at London School of Medicine.
Right, okay, so you're back in London there. And then did you do it full time?
Yeah, and I worked again for London Scottish. But this time I was there pretty much 3 days a week. And I really enjoyed the physio degree. I loved working at the hospitals, and it gave me a really good grounding. And made, when you see some people who are really sick and unwell, it was really satisfying to be able to help them. I enjoyed MSK, but I really enjoyed neuro and all the sort of complex problems that you could see these neurophysios have been working 20 years, Their clinical reasoning was fantastic. And London's got some of the best hospitals, around. So I think you do 1,000 hours work experience in the physio degree, which was the key difference for me than sports therapy. And that was really great time in my life, actually, and it reinforced that yes, this is definitely what I want to do.
So did you feel like, because you'd done 3 years of sports therapy, did you feel that when you went in there, you've got other people who haven't done a degree, I presume, as well, and did you feel like you were way ahead of them, or how did you feel you felt in comparison?
I felt very comfortable in all the MSK modules, and I'd worked in some quite harsh environments as a sports therapist. I had, some quite good problem solving, clinical reasoning skills, and some, I was on a call with someone yesterday, and sometimes now I consult when there's a problem with a patient, and I was talking to a guy who wanted me to try and help him solve this problem with an elite cyclist, and the cyclist physio and the physio that he was employing. And it comes down to, a lot of the time, soft skills. When I look at the work experience students that are coming through our door, I think you can teach people how to mobilize a back, and when to stretch and when to strengthen and what treatment to select. But I really struggle to teach people the soft skills you need to be, to be able to work at the highest level and to get the best out of people. And so that's what I'm really looking for. And that's probably, I'm not the best physio in the world, I'm not the most knowledgeable, but what I'm really strong at is those softer skills and getting the best out of people, which I think is one of the most important things a good physio can have, And so that was that sort of gave me confidence in the course. And then all the educational, a lot of the physio degree was, based on how you got on placement, and how you interacted with the patient. And, I was always on time, and, always sort of passionate about working with people. So that stood me in good stead on the course.
So, like the soft skills, go into a bit more detail about what you particularly mean when you say that.
Yeah, well, the soft skills are, getting the patient on board with the plan, whatever that plan is, and helping them, because ultimately we're teachers, and we're getting people to adapt to change. When there's an injury, their schedule, and what they have to do requires a change in beliefs, or a change in attitudes, or just a change in the day-to-day. So for the physio, in my eyes anyway, they have to be able to encourage people to change and learn. And I think they really, the soft skills are getting people on board and getting empathy and understanding. And this call I was on yesterday, the medical manager was sort of, demonstrating that this elite athlete wanted to ride 27 hours a week, and they had a femoral nail, and the physio in the UK was like, well, no, that's not the right thing to do. And the physio down in France was like, well, this is what we've always done. So trying to, and he said, the guys in France are wrong, aren't they? And I was like, well, I think the problem is that the physio in the UK has lost the athlete, and so the athlete's naturally going to go to the person that they have a relationship with, and the person that they trust. and it may be that what they're doing is wrong, but the point is that you're dealing with personalities, and those soft skills have been ignored, really. And that's what was quite interesting. It's really awkward and uncomfortable, but that's kind of what came out of it. You know, to progress an elite cyclist back to riding at the highest level, it's just a question of returning symmetry and making sure the mechanics are okay, and mitigating all the risks. So you can write that down on a piece of paper and give it to him. But if it's completely against what he's done in the past, or if we haven't found out, you know, what him and his physio are already doing, they're always going to push back at it, you know. So I think those respecting the patient and those soft skills are something that are really hard to get. And I meet loads of physios who are really experienced and very, very knowledgeable, but they fail to get that patient on board. And I would say that that's the key area of being successful, you know, across private practice and elite sport. That's the one thing that I really value when I work with people.
And that, I suppose, two questions on that. Is that something that you develop, or is it a sort of natural thing? And then also, when you are recruiting people, how do you assess that? Because it's quite difficult to say in an interview situation, assess.
Yeah. So I mean, I never interviewed anyone. I've never interviewed a therapist. I always, I take a lot of them from university, and I always ask them to, number one, work for free, because that's what I always used to do. I spent about 8 or 9 years, you know, turning up with my little bag and stood in a field in the rain, and you know, the most I got was petrol money and stuff and a free t-shirt. But I was just happy to be there, and I think that's the first challenge. So if someone demonstrates that they're there for their passion in the profession, and they're at sometimes antisocial hours, and I think that's for me the first thing that demonstrates they're going to be successful. And then the next thing is, you know, how they interact. And so all my people that work for me now, they all spend time with me in clinic, and I watch and I listen, and you know, the ones that say nothing and just watch me work, you know, and they don't interact with front of house staff, and they don't pick up a mop or tidy around the gym or put the weights away and don't get themselves busy. That's also, you know, people who can think without being told, and good housekeeping, and able to communicate. I think we can teach them how to be a good physio or a good sports therapist, but those skills are a little bit, you know, difficult to teach and difficult to learn. But they're the ones, funnily, that I value the most.
Yeah, no, I could definitely empathise with that. We had a guy that volunteered for us for 6 months in his final year of job, and he's still with us now, 8 years on. So, and he's a sports therapist actually. So,
yeah.
Well, you know Dom, you've met Dom, so well done, Dom, if he's listening.
Yeah, well done, Dom. You're doing well. Keep it up.
So once you'd done the physio degree, was there any point, you mentioned how much you enjoyed the neurological side of things and that area, was there any view that you may go into more NHS type non-sport work?
Well, I mean, I got to the point where I was, you know, I achieved everything really that I wanted to achieve. My goal was to work at an international level, and you know, I remember I was stood on a field in Surrey. You know, it's pouring with rain, and everyone's fit, and they're all running around, and I'm in my kit with my England rose on, and my bag, and my towel, and all that. And I'm stood there, and I've not seen the wife for about 3 weeks, and I've got one baby and one on the way. And it's how you measure success, isn't it? And I just thought, you know what, I'm actually done. And I mentally and emotionally decided right then that I had to get out, because working full time in sport is exhausting. I cared about it so much that it was it was everything to me. I lived and breathed it, and unfortunately that can be quite exhausting sometimes. So I needed a new thing to focus my energies and attention on. And we had a big meeting, Christ come to Jesus moment with the missus, and I moved back, and I gave up working at London Wasps and England Rugby, and I went and worked in a hospital. Having never worked in a hospital before in my life, I found myself to be the medical manager of a physio department in a hospital. How bizarre! Working 9 to 5. Which was real eye opener. You know, I'd never ever had what I term as a proper job before. I never had to arrive and had a desk and things, and you know, people reporting into me. And I just remember sat there in a room like this with no bed. You can see I've got a bed there. Every physio should have a bed in their office, I think, just in case someone wants treatment. And the lady came in, I can't remember, I think it was one of the physios on the ward, and said, "Oh, how are you settling in as our new physio manager?" And I was like, "Well, everything's great, but where's the bed? What am I supposed to be doing?" And they said, "Oh, you don't do any treatment. You're here to manage us." And I said, "But that's the only thing I'm any good at, you know." And in the rugby, I'd always try and treat as much as I could, and the young ones would be doing the database. They'd be doing the injury audit and all the administrative things that people without loads of clinical skills can do, but are really important. And that's what I decided we'd do at the hospital. So all the junior physiotherapists would do all the sort of day-to-day management tasks, and I'd just treat. And I'd chair one meeting a week, and we'd all talk about difficult patients we'd seen or clinical scenarios we were unsure of. And then everybody else had one of my management tasks that I was supposed to be doing, but would definitely mess it up because I can't add up and I can't read and write very well. But they were brilliant at that, and they were like, "Oh, thank God I'm not having to have a full list treating." So they had time to work on some of their skills, and it was really good actually. It was a good period of time in my life, and it settled me down. But then you meet the surgeons and they ask you about your background, and I'd worked with a lot of them before because I was at Sale Sharks for 4 years, and naturally the Red Bulls start to filter your list with athletes, and then you'd see a few weekend warriors, and eventually it's always the same. I'm kind of stuck now, but yeah, I guess 60-70% of my list was weekend warriors and athletes with bits that had broken off and snapped, and it was my job to try and get them back, as quickly and safely as I could.
So when was that then? At what point were you, in which hospital were you at?
I was at Spire Manchester.
Okay, yeah.
So that was after. So I worked for Sale and then Wasps down in London, and I moved back to Manchester where my wife's from, and just worked there.
And did you I think it's always quite interesting, isn't it, when physios or anyone in any profession, when they progress, it goes into a management role, but that doesn't, if they're a good physio in this instance, doesn't naturally make them, say, a good in a management position. So what's your thoughts on that? Because we deal with loads of it where it's like you're dealing with a physio who's become a manager, maybe they miss the clinical world like you did as well.
Yeah, I think, you'd have to ask the staff at Altius now, but I can manage people and I can manage services, and obviously I run the business, but there are a lot of people that are really, really good at doing that. So my whole philosophy is just build your team and get people who absolutely love administration and are excellent at answering the phone and chairing meetings and spreadsheets, and find who those people are and try and and try and get them working together, rather than it's really, it's tempting if you're the manager or whatever, the head person, to sort of take all these different roles on because you've got to be all knowledgeable and all powerful. And actually, I think there's a lot of strength in learning to delegate to people who are better at it than you, and stick to what you're good at. I see lots of physios that they've taken on lots of different clinical skills, injections and ultrasound and all these different things. And I just never seem to have the time to do injections and ultrasound and all this because I'm too busy treating and rehabilitating people. So I'm trying to be really, really focused with what I do. And the more I do it, the better I am at it, I find, because you make mistakes and you learn and stuff. Whereas if you diversify and, you do less treatment, you're going to become less good at it, I guess.
Yeah, so given then when you're maybe in that quasi state, you're at Spire Manchester, but then was at that point you wanted to say you had a vision for having your own private practice? How did that transition happen?
Well, I always wanted to have my own private practice, but loads of physios out there, I didn't back myself really. My administration skills aren't great. I can't add up very well, so it was like a pipe dream really. And it takes a hell of a lot of confidence to set up and run something yourself. And so I would always talk about it, but I was probably just going to, work as a physio for somebody else for the rest of my life. And then I got my life-changing moment. I said to my wife, I'm sure I'm going bloody deaf in my right ear. And I've told this story a lot, but I was treating an ENT surgeon at the time. He said, you should get it checked out. So they looked at my eardrum, looked at my ear canal, and everything was working fine. And then they tested my hearing, and I was profoundly deaf in my right ear. And your body can adjust if you've got one-sided deafness and can accommodate quite well until you've got virtually no hearing. And so I went and I saw a neurosurgeon, had a brain scan, and they diagnosed an acoustic neuroma, which is a benign tumour or mass that grows behind your ear. And I was so lucky because it was growing in a certain location that made me deaf. And a lot of them grow and they don't cause that, but it was actually kinking my brainstem over. So it was, it was terminal. It would have been. So I was really, really lucky. And I remember it was a 12-hour operation, team of 4 people trying to tease it out. I don't know, you can see my scar there. And I was just lying in the hospital bed. I was in intensive care for a couple of days, and then it took me about a week to get out of Salford Royal. And it just, it made you think, well, life's too short. If I mess it up, I can just go back and work in rugby again or go back to the hospital. And I had a few mentors then, a couple of guys who'd started businesses on their own, and, really inspirational people who'd, taken a risk and it paid off, and it was all up to them. And so I just thought I'd give it a crack, really. And my main goal was just to make my salary in 2 days. And so I went around the surgeons at the hospital. The Spire Manchester were great. They were really, really good. They met with me and said, well, look, we'll rent you a room and on a consultancy contract and see how you get on. And so that was Altius. It was me just renting a room at Spire Manchester. And, they employed a new physio manager. And I did that for probably 6 months. And after about 4 weeks, obviously everyone supported me and sent me loads of referrals. And I remember after 8 weeks, I was trying to invoice on my own, got it all wrong. So by the 3rd month, I still hadn't been paid any money. And it was like, oh my God. And my knight in shining armour, who's still with us now, our practice manager, Natalie, said, oh, do you want me to do a quick invoice run for you? And it was just like, the heavens had opened, and she did it in about 3 minutes. And all these invoices went off to the insurance companies and everybody else. I got paid, and that was the start of it. And so it was a twist of fate. It was something that it gave me a kick up the arse, really. So it was the best thing that ever happened to me, and the worst at the same time, you know.
So how long after finding the tumour was that you were then recovered, basically, or able to go back to work?
I had a scan, and I had sort of surgery after about 12 weeks to get it out, and then it was probably 3 months recovery before I could start treating, because you can't bend over. I couldn't tie my shoelaces up. I couldn't unload the dishwasher for the first month. I'd lost all my balance down my right side, so I had lots of fatigue and headaches, and so the first 6 weeks I was really rough. But it got better, and everyone was queuing up to go, oh, what a shame, you used to do triathlons, and isn't it a shame, and I was like, well, I feel as though I'm going to get back to doing that. And that was why I climbed the Matterhorn and I still raise money now for the Acoustic Neuroma Association, and I go and do talks, because a lot of people who've had the same surgery as me don't have quite the recovery I've had. I think I'm sort of really lucky, because a lot of people suffer with fatigue and depression and chronic headaches and poor balance, and a lot of it is to do with the because you're deaf, left deaf. It can be quite life-changing for people, particularly in busy environments, office environments. I'm so lucky to be in a room with just one other person. So yeah, my recovery was, you say you never really recover, but I'm so busy now, I don't actually have time to think about it, which is a blessing. Yeah, but my recovery I was very, very lucky, and a lot of people haven't been as lucky. So yeah, I feel very grateful, really, to Salford and the team there. They were fantastic.
Yeah, no, it's great to have such a great neurosurgery place right on in where you were based, anyway.
Yeah.
So in terms of Altius then, so you said that the main goal was for you to just be able to pay yourself, basically, to begin with. So was there a vision of where you wanted to get it to, though, to where you are now and so on?
Yeah. There's always if it goes well, then maybe we'll get our own clinic, and then after 3 years we were in a position where we had our own practice, and then you're thinking, oh well, if I've done it once, maybe I'll be able to do it again, and so I don't have this great, everybody tells me, oh, what do you want to be? Where do you want Altius to be in 15, 20 years? And what's your exit plan? And I throughout my whole life, I've sort of taken, one game as it comes. You are from the environment that you've been created, and there's no point talking about winning the season if you're losing every match at home. So I've always focused on getting it right now in the treatment room, because that's basically how we're successful, and then making sure that the staff are offering a good service, and if that's if that's the bedrock of our business and the foundation, then the rest kind of looks after itself. If people want to come and see you and pay money to see you, then scaling that becomes a lot easier. And I wouldn't be disappointed if this was all that we do. But I'd be really excited if I gave 20 or 30 people around Manchester the opportunity I had. I don't want them all to get a brain tumour to decide that this is what they want to do. But Altius really is about there is everything is on the table for our staff. So if you show that you want to run your own practice and create a legacy for yourself, then it's all on the table. And our staff, they know that if they can get a busy list, they can have a full-time job. And if they do well at inspiring others and getting others busy, and then they can have their own service. And if they run a successful service, like in the arthritis clinic, for example, then they'll be paid more because of that. And then if they show, that they want to run their own area or clinic, then they'll be paid more for that. And I really want to share and give people opportunity, and I think that's why they stay, and they feel incentivized to make Altius a success, because they feel that it's part of them rather than just me, because that's what keeps me getting up in the morning. Is I feel that I'm an integral part of it, and I feel that I can control its direction. So that's what I'm trying to do for everybody else really involved in the process. So I guess in 10 years' time, if everybody had a share of Altius and all had their own clinic, which they had the freedom to direct in any which way they wanted, then I'd feel really proud of that.
Yeah, definitely. And then, so in terms of setting up those different services, like you mentioned, arthritis, is that driven by things that you see there's an opportunity for, or is it by the member of your team that says, this is something that I want to develop?
Yeah, both. And, from I guess I'm the most experienced of all our clinicians, so they look to me to lead on new service development. But the young ones coming through have great ideas about, I'm quite rigid with what I think about charging and session time. And, Sam came up a couple of months ago with a 20-minute appointment, because sometimes people don't know whether they need physio, and they don't actually know what physio is. They know they've got a problem, they're not sure, they don't want to waste time for an hour coming to the city centre to meet someone if it's not going to really help them. So we started with this sort of 20-minute virtual appointment where they can just talk to us, and we get a relationship straight away with them, and decide whether actually just some exercises are going to be useful in the interim, or actually they need manual treatment, and they need to come and see us. So that was just something that he thought about and suggested in a meeting, and we went, what a brilliant idea that is, because not everyone can afford £100, £80 for a first initial assessment, and particularly if they're not sure that it's going to help them. So I thought that was a really good service. And then we're constantly trying to develop and give opportunities for clinicians. So we've met with a dietitian, and she's got some really clever ideas with how she can collaborate with us on getting our patients a better outcome. So yeah, we're looking. The reason I call it Altius Healthcare is because I want to be a niche healthcare provider. I don't want to be a physio practice, because physio is always only a part of how we get people better. So the goal, I guess, the vision is creating this multidisciplinary team of like-minded people that can collaborate together to get people better, to get them better than they were before, really.
Yeah, and then you've got your other venture, which I've seen you getting involved with, actually renovating. So that looks interesting. I sort of fancy it for our team.
Yeah, absolutely. It was the idea was over a pint and a packet of crisps, which all these things start as. And it was a mate of mine who I played rugby with at London Scottish, and he had this unbelievable career, developed this business from nothing to 150 staff globally and turning over £60 million. And he and I sort of said, well, why don't we find a place to renovate and see if we can run a holiday let business out of it, luxury in the middle of nowhere. And I always said, well, I'm always passionate about offering clinical services, but not just always in the treatment room. And my whole career has been, I've been in a dirty changing rooms or on the pitch or in a hotel room. And some of my best ever sessions, and the richest information I get out of the clients I'm with is often outside of the clinical room. It tends to be a bit stale in here. And true to form, the retreats we've done so far, and I did one yesterday with a couple of Red Bull athletes. Once you're sat in a relaxed environment or walking along the beach, the richness of information that you get, it really helps you as a clinician to sort of piece together how we're going to get this person back to what they do best. And then, you know, away from the clinical environment, working with people I know in the industry, you know, in more sort of mental resilience and fitness, we thought we'd offer that there as well, and try and extend it out into the corporate world, because, you know, if people in the highest, you know, people in the elite people in the highest levels of sport choosing us to sort of rehabilitate them and get them back feeling better, maybe people in a corporate environment might see us as good for that too. So we're going to do 10 retreats this year, one-day retreats, where we take 6 staff out of their environment, and we sort of go red, amber, green. And red is, you know, late nights in the local pub and fry-ups in the morning, and then burn it all off, and, you know, group hugs. And green is yoga, meditation, massage, and, you know, mindfulness on the beach. And amber's everything, you know, pick and choose. So we sort of give them a shopping list, and then expose them to scenarios which get them outside of their comfort zone, and that encourages conversation and team working, but really simple stuff, you know, nothing complicated. And it's a 2-day stay, and you know, we've got some really amazing feedback so far. But it's nothing very complicated. It's all about the environment, really.
No, it sounds really interesting. I find all that personal development, I think it's really, really interesting, and that's one thing that I'm always intrigued about with people at the top of their game in sports medicine. But like, what are the things that you do to keep yourself developed? So are there any particular sort of books or mantras that you like, that you look at outside of just, say, medical research or medical development?
Yeah, I mean, I learn more from other people outside of the clinical environment these days. Business people and people with a story. A lot of the stuff I learn is from the patients I treat, and their stories. You know, you won't be on the bed for longer than 10 minutes before I ask you what you do, and, you know, exactly as you're doing now with me. I do this every hour with the people I treat. And I always learn something from everyone. You know, when we get a new patient on the list, it's like, oh, great. I wonder what they do. I wonder whether they've had any hardship in their life or a story to tell. And so I don't get a huge amount of learning these days from clinical books. And I learn a lot from the people I meet. But then that said, you know, God, I'm on my injection course now. And I've got a butterfly ultrasound machine, so I'm ultrasounding every day and learning that as a new skill. And then all the, you know, the new treatment techniques that seem to be coming out these days, and the new complex units and the new shockwave machines. I'm really passionate about, you know, giving my patient who walks into one of our practices the best standard of care. And so what that means is, you know, the most innovative, the most newest techniques. And a lot of this stuff hasn't got enormous amounts of evidence. But I don't mind that a lot of the time. I like to collate my own experience, you know, through empirical data, really. And if some patients, no matter what the evidence says, some patients really swear by a certain treatment, then that's good enough for me.
Yeah, no, I think it's a good way to look at it. But you mentioned a couple of times about working with the extreme athletes, and like on the wall behind you, you've got, I think it's a Stoke shirt, is it? And was that Ricky Hatton on the other?
Yeah. We try in every clinic to sort of have, you know, a little bit of memorabilia up in everywhere we are. None of those are involved in action sports, but yeah, action sports increasingly has become a bigger part of our practice, really. Which I love riding motorbikes, I love mountaineering, I love jumping off things and climbing up stuff. So yeah, I love action sports, and I'm really respectful of what a lot of action sports athletes do. And, you know, they don't get a huge amount of credit for what they do, and they're not remunerated very well as a general theme. So I've spent a lot of time trying to support them over the years, in and around my working day.
So how do you like get involved with this? Again, you've got a diverse thing of boxing, football, and then like some of the extreme sports as well. Like, how is that something that I presume you don't actively pursue it, and they kind of naturally happen through word of mouth or whatever. But how does that happen?
Well, I think to be the best sports physio in the world, you don't have to be the best physio in the world, but you have to have a passion for it. And what that means is, you know, athletes, they get injured and they need to see someone. And so I'm always, and to my detriment sometimes, I always try and make myself available. And therefore I see more people than other physios might do. I'll always have someone on. If anyone's in pain or they've got a new injury, you know, then I'll finish at 8 rather than 7:30, and I'll see him and I'll give him some advice. And that approach lends itself really well to the elite sports setting, because when they're injured, they need to see someone now, you know, yesterday. And so evenings and weekends and anti-social hours and lunch times, and I'm known by the guys at the clinic for bending over backwards to see them. And I think that's what, you know, then you tend to see more people than anyone. And that continues really.
Yeah, no, it's interesting. Well, I saw on Instagram you were doing some work with a Strictly dancer, I think.
Yeah, that's been a recent thing. So for the last 5 or 6 weeks, we've been on tour with Strictly. So they have the Pro Dancers tour, where they go to like just unbelievable number of cities over 6 weeks. And on their day off, I'd go and set up a bed in a hotel room and see them all. And I just treat them all like rugby players, which the vast majority of them love. And they talk like a rugby player, act like a rugby player, but look like an underwear model. So it's a kind of a strange mix, you know. But I've absolutely loved it. I'm a completely, you know, unashamedly Strictly convert. You know, and the minute it's on the TV, I'm going to be in front pushing the kids out of the way and watching it, because they're, you know, Gorka's got a whoop band, and the amount of work he gets through in a week is absolutely astronomical. And so you've got to be really talented, really, really tough, and be able to, you know, all of them are injured all of the time. It's just how injured. And I'm literally piecing them together every week just to get them out there. And they dance every day, or 6 days a week. And then on 3 days of that week, they're dancing twice. And they dance for an hour, they're 15 minutes off, and they dance for another hour. And it's not like you or I, Andy, on the dance floor, you know, and I've seen you on the dance floor, and there's a lot more activity going on than that. So it's hard on their body. I had to get that in somewhere.
Yeah. Well, we did miss your Christmas night out, unfortunately. What's the guy called, that place?
I know you've seen the video. The video, and I have shown some of the dancers my worm, which is legendary in 3 continents. And it's my party trick, and I hope to, at the age of 70, still be able to jump like a salmon and land in a worm position and worm back. That's, you know, I'll be very disappointed if I'm unable to do that.
Yeah, that is the Altius vision. That is it. That's
it. You know, ignore the clinics and the staff and everything else. As long as I've got the mobility in my back to worm, I'll be happy.
Yeah, and in terms of like just thinking of like a couple of final things now, like who would you say has had a really influential part in your career? I know it's difficult to always pinpoint a few, and you've mentioned a few already, but are there any people that stand out?
Yeah, well, I mean, that's probably, if I look back at my career, I've just been really lucky to work with some really, really brilliant people. I mean, I have to credit my mum for booking me in for university. Otherwise, I'd have been, you know, I'd probably been in the Gulf War with the rest of my mates. So she packed my rugby bag and got me to uni on the wrong course, but you know, it worked out. It worked out in the end. And then after that, you know, Steve Teal, the lecturer I worked with, Chris Newman at London Scottish, Jeff Ross at Sale Sharks, and you know, there's so many to mention. And then Lorenzo Maschi, you know, and Mike Bundy, Phil Batty, the doctors, you know, who have this ability to not take life too seriously, but also are excellent at what they do and have those brilliant social skills that when the shit hits the fan and we're talking about career-ending injuries, you know, they've got the relationship there, and that was really key learning for me. And then, you know, some brilliant masseurs, John Rochford, who I work with now, and Phil Pask, and Barney Kenny at England. Dan Lewington, you know, he doesn't smile much, but he was very, you know, just friendly. You know, you just want people who you can have a bit of banter with and a laugh, and because you're getting up every morning at 6 and you're finishing work at 9 at night, and a lot of the time you just stood there watching other people do stuff. So Simon Edwards, my dear friend, who's now at Cornish Pirates, who, you know, the fatherly figure. I won't call him the grandfatherly figure because he's, you know, that age. But yeah, I've just been really, really lucky with people who've been really patient with me, you know, because I'm a slow learner and my heart's in the right place. But yeah, it's nice, isn't it, thinking back through your career? When someone asks you that question, you don't want to forget anyone. But there's been some really amazing athletes as well. You know, been so lucky. Sometimes I pinch myself, you know, in the changing rooms or in the clinic rooms. I'm surrounded by 5 or 6 World Cup winners. You know, people at the highest level now and they all have very, very similar attributes. You know, they all have this ability to be great at what they do whilst running 2 or 3 businesses, whilst, you know, really engaging. And so yeah, there's been loads of athletes, loads of clinicians, and loads of people that I've learned amazing skills from. But yeah, there's just a few. Sorry if I've forgotten you. I didn't mean it.
In fairness, you got more than most in there, so that was pretty impressive.
Yeah.
No, it's great. I mean, it's really great to see Altius doing so well, and your natural passion and drive for it really comes across, as it always does whenever we catch up. So no, I really appreciate your time for sharing your story. And yeah, well, I think I'll speak to the guys, and we might be up for one of your retreats.
You would be more than welcome. We're going to go red though, rather than amber. So that's bag over the head. It's me shouting at you. It's dunking you in the sea, running you up a hill, and then a couple of drinks in the evening.
Yeah, no, I was thinking more of the yoga, but my yoga is that bad that probably the red would be more enjoyable, actually.
Well, we'll do yoga in the last hour at the end.
Yeah, no, fair enough. But no, Doug, really appreciate you squeezing me in today. So thank you very much, and catch up soon.
It's a pleasure. Thanks very much, Anne. Nice to speak to you, as always.
Cheers. Thank you.